The sun was sinking behind the rugged hills, painting the sky in angry streaks of red and gold, when the lonely rancher, Samuel Hayes, rode past the twisted oaks at the edge of his property. He had been living alone for years, ever since the drought and the harsh winters had claimed his family's land and taken his wife. Life had taught him to expect nothing from the world but silence and solitude. But that evening, something shattered even that bitter familiarity. A small, horrifying figure swayed gently against the wind, a young girl, hanging from a tree, her tiny frame outlined by the dying light. A crude sign was nailed to the trunk above her head, scrawled in jagged letters, "White man don't forgive." Samuel's heart slammed against his chest. Time froze. Every instinct screamed to look away, yet every fiber of his being compelled him to act. The wind carried the faint rustle of leaves, the creak of rope, the faint whimper of a child too small to bear such cruelty. With trembling hands, he dismounted, racing toward her as tears stung his eyes, not from the sun, but from the sight of innocence betrayed, from the knowledge that the world could be so cruel. He cut the rope, catching her fragile body in his arms as if he could hold her life itself together. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of one human heart to change another, please like this video, comment your thoughts, share, and subscribe to our channel, True Love Story. The girl, no older than 12, was unconscious but alive. Her skin bore the pale hue of someone who had been neglected and exposed to fear, and her dark hair clung to her face in damp strands. Samuel set her gently on the ground, noticing the deep bruises on her arms and legs. Fear was etched into every line of her delicate features. The sign, that cruel warning, hinted at a story far darker than he could imagine, one that no child should ever endure. Yet, as he wrapped his coat around her shivering body, a flicker of hope sparked. He could not, would not, abandon her. The journey back to his ranch was slow. The girl's weight was feather light, but her presence pressed heavily on Samuel's mind. He had grown accustomed to silence, yet now the air between them was full of unspoken questions. Who had done this to her? Why, and why was she left here, hanging as a warning to others? The landscape blurred past him, but his eyes never left her small face, willing her to wake, willing her to trust, willing her to forgive a world that had been so cruel. It took hours before she finally stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, wide and fearful, dark pools of distrust. Samuel kept his voice low, soothing, almost a whisper against the night. He told her nothing about the white man she seemed to fear, only offering safety, warmth, and a meal she hadn't touched in days. She recoiled from his touch, flinched at his words, but he remained patient, understanding that trust had to be earned with the kind of gentleness he had long forgotten existed in his own life. As the days passed, Samuel found himself drawn into the girl's silent world. She did not speak much, only letting small gestures hint at her thoughts, a slight nod, a hand clutched to her chest, a tear wiped away before it could fall. He learned her name was Ayanna, which meant, eternal bloom, an ironic yet beautiful contrast to the darkness she had endured. He saw glimpses of her laughter when he showed her the calves in the barn or taught her to milk a cow for the first time. Each laugh, however brief, was a fragile thread stitching her shattered spirit back together. The ranch, which had once been a place of solitude and sorrow for Samuel, now hummed with a quiet tension of life. He shared stories with Ayanna, recounting memories of his own family, teaching her skills of survival, respect, and hope. But behind every smile, she carried the weight of her past. She flinched at shadows, avoided certain corners, and never once let herself forget the sign that had hung above her head. Her silence spoke volumes about the horrors she had endured, about the prejudice, the violence, and the hatred that had shaped her young life. Samuel understood that healing would take more than food or shelter, it would take patience, empathy, and courage. He remembered how lonely he had been, how empty his days felt, and he realized that rescuing Ayanna was rescuing himself, too. In her fragile presence, he found a renewed purpose, a chance to undo some small fraction of the harm that life had done to both of them. The ranch began to transform, as if reflecting the quiet growth in their hearts. Flowers bloomed along the fences, the horses pranced with renewed vigor, and even the sky seemed to soften as though acknowledging the fragile bond forming under its vast expanse. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills and cast long shadows across the land, Ayanna finally spoke, her voice a trembling whisper. She asked why he had saved her, why a man she had been taught to fear had shown her kindness. Samuel, who had once believed words were inadequate to express life's truths, could only smile and say that some wounds deserved healing, some hearts deserved trust, and some souls deserved a second chance. Her eyes filled with tears, not of fear, but of wonder and gratitude, and in that moment, the distance between them, a chasm carved by pain, prejudice, and violence, began to close. As the weeks turned into months, Ayanna slowly let the world back in. She learned to ride the horses with confidence, to care for the animals, to plant seeds and watch them grow, to trust a man who had no family of his own but was willing to become hers. Samuel watched her transform, a quiet pride swelling in his chest. Yet, he knew that the scars of her past would never fully disappear. Every night, he would find her sitting by the fireplace, staring into the flames, whispering to herself stories of the life she had lost, of the pain she had endured, of the sign that had once hung above her. One particularly harsh winter night, as snowflakes whispered against the windows and the wind howled like a wounded animal, Ayanna finally shared the story of that sign. She spoke of a village torn apart by violence, of families destroyed by vengeance, of people who had been taught that forgiveness was weakness. She spoke of a man who had wronged her and her people, leaving the sign as a warning to the world. Samuel listened, heart breaking with each word, feeling her pain as if it were his own. Yet, he also felt a quiet resolve. They could not undo the past, but they could build a future, one rooted in love, trust, and the courage to hope. The days grew longer, and spring arrived with gentle warmth. The ranch, once lonely and desolate, now resonated with laughter, footsteps, and the soft sounds of life renewed. Ayanna would run through the fields, her hair streaming behind her like a banner of triumph over sorrow. Samuel would watch from the porch, feeling a sense of purpose he had thought lost forever. And sometimes, late at night, when the wind rustled through the trees, he could hear her whispering her thanks, a soft echo of a child learning to live again. Healing was never linear. There were nights of tears, moments of anger, and times when Ayanna would retreat into the shadows of her mind. But Samuel never wavered. He became her anchor, her protector, and, in many ways, her family. And in doing so, he discovered that love, in its purest form, does not demand repayment. It does not tally debts or grudges. It simply heals, quietly and steadfastly, one small act at a time. One day, as they watched the sun set over the hills, Ayanna reached for Samuel's hand, the trust finally complete. No words were necessary. They had both survived loss, cruelty, and loneliness. They had discovered that the human heart, though fragile, could endure and flourish when met with compassion. The sign that had once spelled hate now seemed like a distant nightmare, replaced by the quiet miracle of life reclaimed, of innocence restored, of love that had refused to give up. If this story touched your heart, please show your support by liking, sharing, and commenting below. Every small act of engagement reminds us that stories of hope, courage, and second chances deserve to be told. And before we close, please leave a comment sharing what part of Ayanna and Samuel's journey moved you the most. Your words may inspire someone else to never give up, no matter how dark the night seems. Samuel and Ayanna's story is a testament to the quiet power of compassion. In a world that often teaches fear and revenge, their bond is proof that healing is possible, that love can exist even where hatred once reigned, and that one person's courage can save not just a life, but an entire spirit. In the golden glow of the ranch, amidst the soft bleat of sheep and the rustle of spring leaves, a lonely rancher and a young Apache girl had found each other, and in finding each other, they had both discovered the unshakable strength of the human heart.